In 2025, most adult athletes aren't quitting their sport because they immediately get bad at it or they just lose their love for it. Most people are quitting their sports simply because their bodies can't keep up with it anymore. Today, in this video, I'm here to help you take a few extra steps in the opposite direction to that, in the direction of health, protection, and preparation for your sports and favorite activities, particularly by helping you maintain your body's health and your movement freedom so you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want, wherever you want. I'm going to be showing you my top 5 exercises to maintain your joint health throughout this video. So if you're someone looking to heal old injuries, prevent new ones from coming around, or just trying to get your body healthier and more protected, this video is for you. If you don't know me, my name is Nick Barbosa. I'm a Kinstretch coach here from South Florida. I'm in the Fort Lauderdale area. I'm originally from Brazil, have been playing soccer for about 12 years, training in the gym for about 10 years, coaching for about 5 years, and in these 5 years I've coached over 400 active adults and athletes to become more protected and them achieve pain-free sports and exercise. Now, to get into the more informational side of things, I want to first address the title of this video. You saw this video and you clicked on it because you were expecting me to give the top 5 mobility drills for joint health, for joint pain, to prevent injuries, to heal old injuries, which I totally will do. We will get there. However, I first need to clarify a couple things. First, I need to address why that question by itself is a problem in the first place, because I think most people don't understand what a mobility drill is or even what mobility is. Now, it is important to understand that mobility and strength are the exact same thing. They're just said in different words. And what I mean by that is that mobility and strength both refer to your ability of your body to contract through multiple ranges of motion. A lot of people confuse mobility and flexibility. Flexibility is your ability to get to a certain range of motion passively, and mobility is your ability to get to a certain range of motion actively. Therefore, using your nervous system, therefore producing the outcome of strength within that range of motion. So just to give you guys an example, and I've given this example in other videos in the channel before, this is my finger. This is the flexibility of my finger being relaxed. This hand is pulling this finger into multiple ranges of motion. This is the mobility of my finger, where my finger can contract into. So a large chunk, not all of it, but a large chunk of mobility training is putting ourselves into these passive ranges and contracting there hard enough to the point where they become mobile, not just flexible. So you're gaining strength in that flexible range, therefore making it mobility. You can apply the same concept to every other single joint in the body. The hips, the neck, the spine, SI, toes, everything has a passive range and an active range. The more we can decrease the gap between the passive range and the active range, the more active ranges we have control over, the more strength we have, therefore the more mobility we have. So that's really what mobility really means. And it's very important that you guys understand that mobility, you don't drill. Mobility is not a skill that you can practice and get better at, because there's always going to be the next passive range. There's always going to be the next active range that you don't have control over yet. There's always going to be the boundary that you can push within your bodies. They may not look nothing like my boundaries, which is exactly why Kinstretch classes are so applicable to this stuff, because they can mold to your specific body, to everyone's specific body, and we can regress and progress exercises on the fly. But remember, mobility is not something you drill, it's not something you practice, it's not a skill, it's a physical quality that you train. This leads me probably to the next biggest elephant in the room, which is the top 5 situation. Unfortunately, guys, there is no top 5 mobility drills, just like there's no top 5 exercises for anything. An exercise or a mobility drill, it's just another name for training a certain tissue, and every single tissue needs to be trained for it to be maintained. Every single tissue that you are not currently training today is already in the process of deterioration. So myself, you, everyone watching this video, my coaches, all my clients, they all need all the inputs possible within as many tissues as possible. However, that's not how training really works, is it? Usually when we go to the gym, we don't do every single exercise for every single body part every single day. We pick and choose which exercises we're going to target on depending on our goals, our limitations, our injury history. Kinstretch and training for your joints is basically the same thing. We're choosing which exercises are going to be addressing your lowest hanging fruits, when, where, why, for who, and based on all that information, we can conclude which tissues you need to train more than others, which are your lowest hanging fruits that are going to give you the biggest benefit for your buck today. So remember this, there isn't a top 5 exercises or a top 5 mobility drills. there is a top 5 exercises or mobility drills for you right now. For someone else in the past or in the future or right now, it may be something completely different. And for you 6 months from now, it may also be completely different. So with all that being said, what I'm going to be doing today is giving you guys one exercise for the 5 core joints. In specific, addressing the primary function of that joint, which for most joints, it's going to be internal rotation, except for the spine, that's going to be spine flexion. These core joints are going to be the hips, the shoulders, the spine, the elbows, the knees, and a little bit of the scapula as well. Reminder that there's nothing particularly special about these joints. Every single joint needs to be trained in every way, and they all deserve their love. However, it is very hard for you to do any athletic or compound movement without using any of these core joints, which is why I call them the core joints, which is why the class that I give out for free on my Instagram page addresses all of them in the Athletic Engine class. I'm gonna leave the link for that in the description if you wanna start Kinstretch today for free. All right, enough of me yapping. Let's get to the 5 exercises. So the first thing we're going to be starting with is with this 90-90 position for the hip internal rotation. We're going to be doing internal rotation hovers, which means we are working with the back leg. If you guys have watched any of my other videos, you guys have probably seen me do a hip internal rotation lift off at some point. We're going to take a step forwards with that and go ahead and add some dynamic movement into that by creating a hover. So what we're going to do is get in the 90-90 position. We're going to pick up our trail leg for internal rotation. Let's bring our heel as close as we can to our butt, just so we have a little bit more of a leverage point from where to start with. We're gonna pick up that back knee, extend the ankle all the way out, place it on the floor, pick it up, bring it back in, and back down. So think of a hover as a multi-range liftoff. We're working through multiple ranges of hip internal rotation. Now, if you wanna make this even more challenging and even more direct and even more precise, what you can do is grab one of these as a reference point, put it where you think you would hover over, bring it all the way up, hover over your object, bring it down. And here's what you can do. You can stay performing reps in this position up until you touch the tennis ball, at which point you have failed the set. So that's the point where you can't pick your leg up anymore, to the point where you can hover over the object. And that, my friends, is you taking your hip internal rotators to failure. Before moving on to the next exercise, go ahead and practice a few of these if hips are your main issue by coming to this video. And unfortunately, it might be time to speed through these because it is looking like it's going to be a thunderstorm here in South Florida. So let's get moving. The second exercise we're going to be doing is going to be scapular cars, but with a little bit of a twist for an internal rotation bias. So what that's going to look like is I'm going to turn around here so you guys can see. Both hands behind my back, as high as I can or as low as I can. If you can't get into this position because you have a limitation in internal rotation, that's completely fine. If I were to do it here, it would be just as effective. Bring it up. Squeeze the back of my hands into my back, trying to get back into external rotation. Of course, I'm not going to go nowhere. If not, I would have to slice my body in half. And from this position, we're going to bring our shoulders all the way up to our ears. We're going to retract our shoulder blades. We're going to squeeze all the way down into depression and squeeze our pecs into protraction. Now, I want you guys to contract back against your back as hard as you can, to the point where you have your safest contraction. So start at around 50%, see how that feels. Feels good, fantastic. Let me go 80%, squeeze harder, feels good, fantastic. And all the way up and reverse it. So remember, you can regulate your intensity by how much squeeze you put against your back. For this exercise, I recommend about 10 reps each way, and that can be part of your scapular shoulder routine. Moving on to the spine, for this next one, we're gonna need a resistance band because we are going to be doing our cat-cows. So there's 2 ways we can do this. We can do it either on our upper back. So the band would go right where our traps are. We would push it against the floor and segmentally go into spine extension and back into spine flexion, moving each and every single little segment of the spine by itself. And the important part here is that the band is loading you into that flexion. So it's resisting you going into flexion. Remember, your neck goes as well. One by one, which puts a little bit more of a stimulus on the upper parts of your core where T-spine flexion starts. We can also do it for the lumbar spine. If low back is more of your issue, which for most people it is, we can go ahead and put the band on the low back, and instead of putting it on our hands, we can go ahead and thread it through our knees. Boom. And let me show you guys how this looks like from this view. And go into the exact same position, and now the band is going to be loading the lumbar spine. And you just have to perform the exact same movement, and notice how it was a lot harder for my lumbar spine to move this time. Now we are loading the lumbar into flexion. Boom. You can choose either or, either the T-spine or the lumbar spine. Both will work great. You can also do both if you would like. And for this one, I recommend sets in between 1 to 2 minutes. Of course, the thickness of the band matters. The thicker the band, the closer you're probably going to get to failure within that 2-minute mark. But 2 minutes is usually enough to provide blood flow and to provide nutrients and to provide a lot of neurological stimulus to that area of the back. And oh my God, it is raining. Man, the weather in Florida just switches up on you. It's insane. It was sunny just like 30 seconds ago. All right, moving on to the knees. We're gonna go ahead and take more of this, I guess, bear sit combat stance-ish position, kind of figure 4-ish, I guess. Grab a lighter band if you need, especially if you have knee issues. I definitely want you guys to understand what rotation is before you start loading it. If you guys want to go ahead and put both hands here and just kind of rotate your tibia in relationship to your femur. Again, we're not looking for that femur to move, we're looking for that tibia rotation. But what we can go ahead and do is go ahead and place the band around our feet, thread it through, wait a couple times. What we can do is start loading that internal rotation. Remember what I said, the internal rotation is the primary movement of every joint. So we definitely want to make sure that our internal rotation is healthy before we understand that our flexion and extension is healthy. So most people in the gym are only training their flexion and their extension of their knee, which is fine. We also need to train flexion and extension, but internal rotation is not only often neglected, it's also the primary function of the knee joint, is to internally rotate. So we want to make sure that our internal rotation is healthy and strong by loading it accordingly. Of course, try not to put the band too far down the base of your foot. You want it to be more closer towards your toes. Make sure it's pretty tight in there. And again, the thicker the band and the more apart you pull it from your knee, the more you're going to be loading those knee rotational tissues. For this one, I recommend sets of 15 to 20 reps, just so you guys start to understand what knee rotation is supposed to feel like. Once those feel good, you can lower the reps and increase the intensity a little bit by getting a thicker band or pulling it further away from you. And for the elbow, we're actually going to be doing something very similar. If you guys haven't caught up to that by now, I'll probably make a video on it, but the elbows and the knees mirror each other in the same way that the shoulders and the hips mirror each other, in the same ways that the wrists and the ankles mirror each other. And so the primary function of elbow is that internal rotation, which for elbow, we call it pronation. So for this one, you can actually leave the band attached to your foot after you worked on your knees. We're gonna go ahead and support that elbow on our knee. And what we're gonna try to do is load that pronation as much as we can and relax. Now remember, the closer you go to flexion, the harder it's going to be to do that pronation. Not only because you're gonna be further away from your foot, but also you're gonna be closer to that end range. It's a lot harder to create more pronation here than it is all the way down here at the mid-range. Look at my knuckles. My knuckles are now perfectly pointed towards the ceiling. As soon as I start pulling in, they start coming internal a little bit. They start losing that pronation. So make sure that you understand your movement and really start loading those pronators in the range that you can work with. Over time, obviously start increasing all the way up here and start doing those cars, those capsule cars, though, that elbow pronation over here, loading it with progressively thicker bands and with more tension over time. So those are the 5 movements. So those are the 5 movements for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm gonna get the heck out of here because it's gonna start raining pretty hard on me. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments. If you guys have any video requests, also please let me know in the comments. Hope this was helpful. See you guys in the next video.